Hi everyone. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and my life has always been pretty simple. I've been married to my husband, Dan, 32, for 6 years, and we have a sweet little boy named Simon who just turned 5. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, our routines, our space, and our way of doing things. That was until my mother-in-law, Linda, 58, came crashing into our lives like an uninvited storm. Linda has always been a lot, the kind of person who manages to be the loudest voice in any room, constantly offering opinions no one asked for. She's the queen of passive-aggressive comments and makes herself the center of attention at every family event. Still, she lived far enough away that her antics were mostly limited to the occasional weekend visit. I could handle that. But then, Linda lost her job. From what I gathered, she had a falling out with her boss. A misunderstanding in her words, though it sounded more like Linda refusing to follow rules. Shortly after that, she lost her apartment too. Apparently, her landlord had unrealistic expectations, though, again, knowing Linda, I'm sure there was more to the story. She called Dan first, telling him she had nowhere else to go and needed her family. Dan, being the empathetic and slightly guilt-prone person he is, immediately started talking about letting her stay with us. I wasn't thrilled. Actually, I was horrified. But Linda knew exactly how to work Dan, layering guilt on thick and reminding him of everything she'd done for him. It didn't take long before he was nodding along, convinced we were her only option. We sat down to talk about it, and I agreed to let her move in, but only for a month, and with rules. She'd have to respect our house rules, contribute financially, and help out around the house. We wrote everything down so there wouldn't be any confusion later. It felt a little extreme, but I knew how Linda operated. Boundaries were going to be our lifeline. The other team members nodded cooperatively. All of these were in the thread count in the very beginning of our frequency testing modality. Linda moved in a week later, and the chaos began immediately. She walked into our house, looked around, and declared that our open-concept kitchen was tacky. It wasn't even a passing comment. She spent 10 minutes pointing out all the ways we could modernize the space, like tearing down walls and upgrading our appliances. Dan and I exchanged glances, already regretting this. It only got worse when she saw the guest bedroom. She stood in the doorway, shaking her head like a realtor showing a fixer-upper. "This won't work," she said. She wanted new curtains, a firmer mattress, and even suggested repainting the walls. I reminded her that this was temporary, so there was no need to settle in so dramatically. She rolled her eyes and said, "Fine, I'll make do," in the most put-upon tone you can imagine. A few days in, Linda decided she was in charge of the kitchen. She'd start cooking meals unprompted, which might sound helpful, except she completely ignored the fact that I'm allergic to shellfish. Twice, she served dishes loaded with shrimp, claiming she forgot and that I was too picky anyway. After the second incident, I told her firmly that Dan and I would handle the cooking from now on. Her criticisms weren't limited to the kitchen. She made it her mission to critique our parenting. Simon is a sweet, sensitive kid who likes dinosaurs and drawing. Linda, however, thought he was too soft and needed to be toughened up. She scolded him for crying when he fell off his bike, calling it attention-seeking, and suggested Dan take a stricter approach. I told her flat out to leave the parenting to us. But that didn't stop her from sneaking in little lectures to Simon when I wasn't around. As if that wasn't enough, I started noticing my personal belongings weren't where I'd left them. My office desk had been rearranged, and my laptop had mysteriously moved to another room. When I confronted Linda, she brushed it off, saying she was just tidying up, and that the space felt more open her way. It didn't help that she said this with the kind of smile that made it clear she thought she was doing me a favor. The worst moment came when I caught her